What's that? Who there? Whoa.
All right, guys, I've got Carly Bigi, founder and CEO of Laws of Motion here. Carly, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to get into it today. So let's start right in with your background, and we'll get into the company and everything. But just give us a snapshot of who you are and what your path has been, kind of leading up to when you first started thinking about Laws of Motion.
Yeah, great. So I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, with deep roots in the NASA shuttle community. So very like math and science oriented as a little, and then was just such a tinkerer. Like as a child, I carried around a backpack of tools in case I needed to build something or fix something. Today, I would absolutely not clear TSA with that. And then sold my soul into management consulting. Decided to go to business school, and it was just before attending business school that I had that light bulb moment for Laws of Motion.
Okay, so before we dive into the different intricacies of the business, just give us like the 2-minute overview. What is Laws of Motion today? What do the products look like? Like how much traction have you had?
Yes, Laws of Motion makes perfect fitting women's wear using data science, 144 perfect fitting micro sizes that are shape inclusive, and zero waste on demand production in the United States. We launched in May of 2019 with one product, the Alpha dress. It came in 99 sizes. And we've seen over 100% month over month growth. We've had some interesting pivots during COVID and stepping up to help with some PPE production, which has led on to some really exciting opportunities. But we were back in full force and actually just launched a new line this week.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm pumped to get into it. Okay, so first I want to talk about the MBA. So you did consulting, you went to the MBA. What was your approach going in? So I'm assuming this, and we'll get into the story, but the story of how you thought about Laws of Motion happened during the MBA. So were you going in like, I want to start something, I'm looking for an idea, or take me through that?
Yeah, what's crazy about it is I did it like all wrong for the first 6 months. So I went into business school thinking I was going to dig deeper into healthcare, like really like understand that industry, return to Deloitte and pave the way for innovation as one of the firm's youngest partners. That is not what happened. I instead went shopping with a guy friend right before business school. Actually, I was still on client projects at Deloitte. And I saw for the first time how the other half shopped. So how you can walk into a semi-custom menswear shop and sip whiskey and pick fabric and get measured and be out the door in 30 minutes and 3 days later have a perfect fitting suit. And I was like, wait a second. Why do I have to go spend all Saturday trying to find a basic black dress that sort of fits, is sort of my price point, take it to get tailored, wait a week, and still fidget with it when I'm wearing it? And so I went back to my team that Monday and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but when I'm in business school, I'm going to find a way to use data science to make perfect fitting women's clothing. And that's what we did.
So let's dive into that, because I think there's a lot of people out there, either in MBA or pre, that have these ideas, and going from like 0 to the first 6 months, those initial steps are really tough. So just walk us through, like, what were some of the first things you did? Did you start with research? Did you start with customer interviews, or did you just get right into it, try to find a factory? Like, how did that work?
I did everything wrong, everything right. I had no idea what I was doing. I was very curious and openly curious. And as the customer, I really understood the pain point. It was about fleshing out the right solution, right? Ideas are free. It's like, how do you bring that to life in a way that's sticky and meaningful and actually adds that extra inch to somebody's posture, but also to their mindset? And so the first thing I did was get the fuck out of my own way. Like, I stopped making excuses. I stopped saying, I didn't have a background in design. I didn't have a background in data science. I didn't have a background. Who cares? Like, ultimately, it's your grit and ingenuity and your approach to innovation that is going to change the way the world and the way, people exist in the world. And that was the first step.
Yeah. And how far did you feel like you could get, or how far did you get like bootstrapping it versus realizing like, okay, I'm going to need some funding to build this? Like where were you in the business cycle when you realized that?
Yeah. So that, it all kind of came to an end, or came to a head really at the end of business school. So I had gone through a ton of customer discovery. We had thousands of women signed up for our initial product. I had different versions of the product for the initial dress, and then a framework for what the architecture was going to look like for data science, like how we were approaching both size and shape inclusivity. But we still needed to build the algorithm, right? There was a lot that needed to happen. We had clickable prototypes. It was an idea that started to take life. Like, you could see it, you could feel it, like you could touch it. And then I went off and raised $1 million that summer.
Okay. And so were you partnering with people in Colombia or did you write the algorithm yourself, or did you partner with someone to do that? Or
Oh,
was that when you raised the money, you hired somebody to do that?
it's even better than that. So it was one of my classmates who became an investor, but everyone's like, oh, you've got this massive data set on women's bodies. So we started with 1 million data points. We now have over 20 million data points on women's bodies. And that's informed our sizing and our analysis and our psychological, the way we understand how women self-report as well. The psychological coefficient is what we call it. But all this to say, with that data set, I invited a friend or a classmate of mine, Charlie, to go have coffee. And over that cup of coffee, we were talking through where we were. And I was like, can I even build what I'm telling investors I want to build? And he's like, hold on, like, how much have you spent? How did you get all this? He's like, I will build this for you if you let me invest. How does $50,000 sound? So great ROI on a cup of coffee, and that kicked off our fundraising. So actually, our first data scientist gave us money.
Yeah, that's a win-win for you for sure.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things I love asking founders is when you're looking at a market, what about the market is disruptible and attracts you? I think for this, it's a little more obvious that women's sizing was wrong, like it was being done incorrectly by all these brands, and you knew if there was a way to figure that out, there'd be a massive opportunity. Why were all these big brands overlooking this concept of like microsizing? Like why is it like this?
Yeah, I mean, the whole system is broken and it's so inefficient and it's so wasteful, right? Because you've got seasonal buying purchases and high volume production. And so other brands design for the average, right? They look at what the median body shape and size is for a woman. And on average, that's going to fit 2 to 5% of women perfectly across a brand's line. And women will identify more with the brand, and anyone will identify more with the brand when it fits them better. And that's tied to the models and the proportions that are used. But it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you don't have to buy things 6 months in advance in huge volumes in only 10 sizes. Like, why don't we make it size inclusive, right? Why don't we go from 00 through 40? Why don't we have 14 shapes per size? Like, there is no average woman. There is no one size 6. And so we broke that mold and flipped it upside down.
And are you guys the only ones or one of the only companies that are approaching it this way? Because I feel like not only like is your line going to be successful at some point, whether it's this year, 2 years, 5 years, but like this idea of microsizing and production in this way, I'm sure you could license that to other brands, right? Like where do you see that going?
Are you on my team? How did you know all this?
Yeah, I've got all the strategy documents here.
Yeah, you got it. That's awesome. So great question. It's something that we've been very focused on from the beginning. It's like really, when you think about affecting change and you think about how you really impact women at scale and impact such a wasteful industry at scale, it has to be something that can plug into other businesses. And so we've had a lot of traction on that front and some very exciting things coming up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So another question I love to ask is, in this kind of like initial phase when you're looking at the market, right? It's go, go, go. But like typically earlier founders, they'll poke holes or have these doubts or concerns about things that they think like, if this happens, we're going to be in trouble. Or if this doesn't go our way, we're going to be in trouble. What were some of the things that I guess were assumptions early on that maybe ended up being true, but you were worried about, like, this has to happen for us to succeed?
Oh my gosh. I always say, don't think outside the box, think like there is no box. Like, I'm a big fan of removing all obstacles from my team. Like, if you remove all constraints, like, it's amazing, like how creativity and like ideation flows so naturally. And it's not that you're going to come up with some crazy idea that's so expensive or, not tenable, but instead you're going to really hone in on like, what is the core of something? And so I think one thing I thought early on that everyone said is like that you have to have a co-founder. Right? You're going to start a business, you're a co-founder. Like, where you have to, one's business, one's tech. Like, you can't, right? And it's like, I for so long let that churn just kind of like be noise in my world. And this second I let that go, Kyle, like, magic happened, right? It was like, no, like, we're doing this. Like, I've got a team in place. We're going. Like, there is no like gap to fill. Like, we'll build and we'll scale and we'll bring on the right team as we need to. But that was something early on that I just like. It was it's just not real. I mean, it is in some cases, but not always. Like, you can do this. Like, go for it.
Yeah, so many people do say that. It's like, this is the exact pattern you should follow, but really it's not right. Like, we had a guy on here that he co-founded a company called Levels. They have like
I love Levels.
Yeah, and they have five founders. Yeah. It was Josh. And they have 5 founders. So like they're doing it completely different, and they're getting so much praise for that. Like, there's a million ways to do it.
Million ways. I just think like just because something's been done a certain way before does not mean that that's the way it needs to happen going forward. And so trust your intuition, listen to your gut, go for it.
Yeah. Before we go further, where'd the name come from? How'd you get Laws of Motion?
Yeah, Kyle, laws of motion is all about being a force at whatever it is that you choose to do. And we exist to fuel women's ambition. So the whole brand is about this shoulders back, chin up, go light the fucking world on fire. Like, and there's something about it that's both like powerful, androgynous, it's rooted in science. Like, I like that it wasn't just a one word, like, situation. There's a real like feeling and momentum behind it. And so it just felt right.
Yeah, I like that. All right, so let's talk about like the customer journey. So the good thing is for companies like this that are so data heavy, you've created an amazing, robust model on the back end, but you're able to make it really simple for people on the front. So like if I'm a woman and I come to your site and I want to buy and I want to like get custom fitted, what does that look like? Like what data points am I giving you?
Oh, it's so easy. You're going to answer 5 questions. So you're going to talk to us about your best fitting bra size, and that's going to correlate to a chest measurement. We're looking at best fitting brand and jean size. So we're going to start to look at your waist and hips and overall like body proportions. We're going to ask about weight and height and age. Pre and post menopause has a real consideration there, and or has a real high correlation to overall body proportions and volume distribution. And then also about demographic, and that's about it. Really simple. It takes less than 60 seconds, and then you get matched your perfect fitting size. There is no number. So if you filled out the quiz, you would be a size Kyle, because it doesn't matter what size or shape you are. What matters is that it feels like it was made for you, because it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
A question that, as I was doing research, I feel like one thing with consumer companies and retail in specific that makes it difficult is they lock so much of their capital up in inventory and it's just sitting around, right? And you guys have created an asset light model, right? Where you have no inventory. So
Yeah.
talk about that. Like, was that intentional from the beginning, and how does it work today? Like, walk us through that process.
Yeah, it's very tech heavy. So everything is integrated on the back end. A customer places an order that gets queued up digitally to be laser cut, stitched and finished, packaged, and shipped directly from our factory. So what's important about that is the ability to be super lean in tracking raw materials and throughput. And we were on the Today Show at month 3 of being a business, and that literally sunk us for several months. And our head of operations had just gone on maternity leave, and so I was customer service, and the whole thing was like, those women didn't wear jeans, and right? So I was like, oh my God, how do we get you to the fit quiz? Like, so many things that you think you've thought of, and then all of a sudden you've got this, 55 plus year old customer, thousands of them that are so excited and super loyal, but ultimately couldn't convert because of the quiz. But anyways, the operations, having zero waste was important from the very beginning. I think that when you look at like why we do things the way we do and how they can be done better, it wasn't about like, well, what's the way to do it, but instead like, how should we do it and what do we need to make that happen? And so finding the right partners and attracting the right technology to bring that to life has been part of our secret sauce.
Yeah, I love this idea of throw out all the rules, throw out all the guideposts, like let's actually build it from scratch, because everything you're doing, it sounds completely the opposite from what all of these massive like retail companies are doing. And because they're getting it wrong, right? They're not customizing for the customer.
It's not about the customer. And we always say rules are suggestions on a good day. Like, I'm all about it. Just like, who cares what everyone else is doing? Like, there's only one you, and that is your superpower. Like, do everything like fully as yourself. Like, really bring yourself into things.
Yeah, you've got a lot of quotable lines, which is good. We'll get that for the promotion. So a question around like the way you produce now. Do you guys have your own factory? And I'm assuming you're going to have to keep upgrading and get bigger spaces. Are you building those up from the ground to custom fit the process that you've made?
Yeah, where there's a lot happening on the back end with production. So we've got several amazing partners in manufacturing. We just launched a facility on the West Coast, but that's mostly for our PPE side of the house. And then, funny enough, we almost bought a factory from a very large retailer, which of course, like, leave it to like, a massive menswear brand going bankrupt, and then this innovative female brand to come in and sweep it up. But there were some challenges there to get that over the finish line. But we're going to continue to vertically integrate. I think what's so important is when you do things differently, it doesn't always plug in neatly. And so instead of trying to force a square peg in a round hole, we've said, well, what do we need and what does it take to make that happen, and have gone after that. So vertical integration into manufacturing in America will continue to be a key part of our business.
Yeah. That's awesome. I want to shift to Something people love when they listen to the show is to hear about things that aren't working. And it's not because they're like haters. It's more just because it truly does give you a look behind the curtain into the actual challenges. And I know, you tell a really good story. The growth sounds really good, but I'm sure you have a few things that are like, shit, like this is really difficult and broke on the back end. So what are some of those biggest things over the past few years that you've experienced that just have not worked?
Oh my gosh. So the jeans question was a big one on the Today Show. All of a sudden we had, millions of views on our site. We had tens of thousands of women filling out the fit quiz. And then I'd get all these emails like, I don't wear jeans. What should I put? And we didn't have a workaround yet, right? So we had just launched, or we pictured this 24 to 42-year-old woman. We did not consider that that woman was then going to retire, go through menopause, still be the same, like, powerful, I've got this human, but then not
different body.
Different body, same woman. So we've got two different customer segments, which is really interesting because it's the same woman, just in a different point in her life. And so we launched new micro sizes. We canceled certain micro sizes. Long story short, like with the jeans question, right, and women, like what we learned is like you can have a great, everything buttoned up and it makes sense, but if women aren't able to answer those questions, or if they answer them, but they answer them like in an ideal state versus the real state.
Yeah, it won't fit.
So I think the second biggest thing is that we saw so many fit quiz responses. Things should map perfectly, but then dresses weren't fitting. And we're like, why is that? And we introduced what's called the psychological coefficient. So it's basically like when a woman answers a fit quiz, we see what she says, but we also understand what she means based on other groupings of similar women. So anyways, lots of things have gone wrong. More things wrong than right. We don't have enough time.
As it typically is. I feel like what's so interesting is, so you've got like 3 things going, and probably more, but you have the clothes, like the actual apparel you're making. You've got the data set, and then you've got the process, which is like the IP that you could then license out. And I'm curious, and I know the answers, they're all valuable, but like, which of those 3 do you and your investors and your team think is the most like value driving force for like the brand 10 years from now?
Ultimately, it's about how we understand our customer and understanding, her data and what works for her, and what she wants to see come to life and how she converts. Our customer LTV is out of it's amazing. We have fiercely loyal customers. And it's because for the first time, women felt seen. Like they feel like something is made for them. And it's the first time many of our customers have ever had something that fits perfectly. And that shouldn't be crazy. But, equal pay shouldn't be either. So like the whole thing, I think that ultimately it's going to come down to how you scale your understanding of your customer and how you bring that to life for other brands so that we can have, less waste, better fit, and a better customer experience, but a better people's lives. That's what it's all about.
For sure. All right, so I want to talk about the COVID situation because it's really interesting in that your core product is like women's workwear, and in theory, everyone's wearing sweatpants 7 days a week now, and that will eventually end. But like in March, I wonder, like, well, the first question I have is, what was your mentality at that point? Like when it started clicking, like, oh wait, people aren't going to go to the office, they might not need this apparel. I know you've still grown, so like, what was the take there? And then I want to get into the PPE stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, like, I didn't even worry. Like, it wasn't about sales or like our product. It was about how do we support our community at a time when so many people feel so helpless. And so we almost immediately launched. And at that point in time, I was very sick. I had COVID in early March. I just returned from delivering a global keynote speech in France. And then we had a pop-up in Florida and Palm Beach. And then I was back in New York. And 2 weeks later, I was incredibly sick. The CDC said, just stay home. Like there are no tests, right? It was a crazy time. It was during that time that I said to the team, like, this is when we dig into our ingenuity and the innovation that got us here. And we pivot and we do everything we can to help. So we launched the Hero Initiative to create an opportunity for our customers to feel like they were part of something and getting back to the community. We took the lining of our products, which is like this super buttery, silky material. We made these $50 hero robes that when you ordered, 10 masks were donated to a frontline hero in need. And so it was a way to really bring people together and feel like they were acting in a way that was productive. And then in addition to that, we started producing PPE. And then we also donated over 1 million masks to hospitals and communities across the United States.
And so did you like shut down the main product line and go all in on that, or were you doing both parallel at that time?
We shut down the main product line, and I sent a really like open letter to our customers, and I said, this is the decision that we've made. I told our investors, it was like, it wasn't even a question. It was like, this is what we're doing. It is not only the right decision, it is the only decision. And we are going to move forward fearlessly and bring this all to life. And so we did. We did that as a virtual team. It was incredible. We delivered 2.4 million gowns in the first 5-week apex of COVID.
That's crazy.
Crazy. And then we went on to do 2 million shoe covers. We started supporting one of the largest oncology hospitals in the United States. It was remarkable what this team can do, but it's all about that shared vision and doing it because like that's what your intuition says. Like this is what we need to be doing right now.
Yeah. And I really like you went all in on it. Like the people that were like, oh, we'll dedicate 5% of our capacity to the mass. It doesn't work. Like you have to really focus all in, all the effort, all the energy.
Yeah.
So have you flipped the switch back yet? Or like, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, we're back, baby. We're back.
Let's go.
Good. So yes, and there was some real weight to that business, and that's been able to move forward. So the PPE side of the house is going to move into commercial and wholesale. So you'll be seeing us on some retail shelves. So really exciting growth there. So we continue to support some of those contracts. We also became the fastest growing female defense contractor because of our work with the DoD.
Nice.
Yes. And so that's pivoted into a really interesting opportunity to produce uniforms. So under a separate business, you'll see us on GQ's hot, top 10 list by holiday, because we'll be moving into menswear with some of our uniform opportunities. But womenswear is back. We launched new product. We've got new product launching every single month. And our community has been so incredible about the way that they've responded. So we're really excited.
That's awesome. Let's give some shine to the product. What's the product line look like? The alpha dress was the core piece initially. What do you got?
Core piece fits perfectly. Reversible zippers, like machine washable, made with zero waste. We now have the Vice jacket. It's a blazer reimagined, so modern take on your typical blazer. Perfect pockets are engineered so you can fit everything you need, but not too much. Super silky, comes in 3 different tweeds. And then we just launched it in our machine washable solid collection. So monochromatic is having a moment, and we are so here for it. And then also we have the Legend dress, which is a perfectly pocketed dress, short sleeves. We love it. This is now also machine washable. And then we're about to launch the Verve mask, which is a perfectly matching, so pairs back to all of our pieces, reversible, machine washable mask that has been engineered to fit all faces very comfortably and fit snug against your face. So those have been a surprise gift with every purchase for January, and then we're going to start selling them next month.
Nice. You guys are killing it for sure.
If you're going to do it, fucking do it.
Yeah, do it. All right. So I want to talk about growth. So now that the line's back on, you got products launching, you got growth coming out of all directions, but I'm sure one of the things you think about as the CEO is, all right, how do we add a 0 to this business? And the duration varies, right? 1, 2, however many years it takes. But how do you think about 10x growth? And like, what's the playbook for you to go acquire new customers? Because you've got loyal ones already, but like, how do you get new customers?
Yeah, 10x growth would be comfortable. That'd be an easy one for us. We're well beyond that at this point. So I think yes, and like in terms of customers, the best thing you can do is really take care of those like that you have, right? And the word of mouth growth that we've seen, we spent $0 our first year on marketing, $0. And we grew over 100% month over month. So there was like a lot of organic press that led into that, but it's really about that honest conversation. It's like, how do you have a real connection with a human in a way that makes her feel like the best possible version of herself? And it's those moments. So sound bites, it's the way that we service our customers that's taken us and really helped scale the womenswear brand.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
When you think about like manifesting the future, you've already alluded to some of the interesting things you're doing, but like try to close your eyes in 5 years from now. What does laws of motion look like to you?
Yes. It's normalized having that feeling when you get dressed in the morning. It's normalizing that putting your clothes on, not having to change because it's exactly what it should be for your body. It's giving you that hour back in the morning of like digging through all your shit and leaving clothes all over the place. Like take that time back, like walk out in the morning and feel like the world is yours. And like, I think that being able to normalize that and really see that come to life for all people, not just our core customers today, is what I'd love to see. Giving that time back to people and helping them feel completely fearless in what they do.
And do you think within 5 years, the laws of motion, like data-driven algorithms and stuff, will be infused in other brands? Maybe people will know it, maybe they won't. But do you think that will mature that quickly as well?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to shift to hiring. So I think hiring's the most important thing you can do. I've said it like on every episode, and
Your people.
pretty much every founder agrees.
Yeah.
People's everything. So what I want to know from you, two things. I think the easier question is, like, what do you look for in candidates, right? Like, what are the characteristics? The harder question, and I want to hear both your answers, is how do you actually assess that? Because it's easy for people to hide it behind resumes, and like in 30-minute interviews, it's tough to assess it. So like, what's your process to actually find these superstar people?
Yeah, my team jokes that like we don't hire, like people come to us. Like you, like that every person we've ever hired like pitched me in some unexpected timeline or capacity, but in the right way, like for what we needed. I always talk about like X factor. Like I look for like an X. It's not like that you've done something before, but it's like how you do it. So I'll often ask like what excites you. I prefer to get to know a candidate outside of an office setting. Like, do you know the waiter's name? Like, do you open the door for hold the door for the person behind you? Like, are you like, do you light up over ideas and like want to, be curious in how you dissect them? Like, I think it's so much more about that, like that X factor that is inside of somebody. And when you find that right, like upper right quadrant human, it's 1 + 1 is a million all day long on your team. And so I think that like people are everything. Like that's all you have at the end of the day. Like your people are everything. And so I'm just very thorough. It's just I like literally don't read resumes. It's like I think one good example, Kyle is one of our most recent hires. Literally DM'd me in the beginning of COVID and was like, "You're killing it. I read your email about the Hero Initiative. How can I help?" And I was like, "How many hours a week do you have? And when can you start?" And she came on like part-time, was like hustling, helping us sort out some logistics for PPE. Literally 2 months later, we hired her full-time. And she is just incredible. And so it's just like put yourself out there, be open to it, and like you'll end up attracting the right people.
Yeah. What's the team look like today? Like how big are you right now?
We're 8 full-time and about 20 part-time contractor type humans that are honestly like full-time extensions of the team, but lean. I mean, what we've done and the way that we've grown, 10,000% in the last year is insane.
Insane.
Yeah.
That's. I thought you were gonna say like 40 or something, like with
yeah.
all that you've done.
Wouldn't that be nice? I would have like a lot more sleep probably if that was.
Yeah. All right. Let's shift into the Startup Manifesto question. So you may have littered some of these facts before in some of your previous answers, but if you had to write a Startup Manifesto with 5 of the most important key lessons or pitfalls to avoid when starting out, what would they be?
Okay, we've talked through some of these. I think number 1 is don't think outside the box. Think like there is no box. Like just really like what are you trying to create? Like go for it. I think that people are everything is number 2. Like everything. Rules or suggestions on a good day is like literally like what I repeat to myself over and over again. It's like it doesn't matter what's been done before. It matters how you're going to do it going forward. I think that it's so important to embrace that it's not that something happens, it's how you handle it, right? It's not that it happens, it's how you handle it. And ultimately, like mistakes are going to happen all over the place. And if you're not making mistakes and you're not failing fast, then you're leaving value on the table or you're not pushing hard enough. And I think that the ability to make mistakes and learn from them and not make them again is powerful. And then ultimately, like, if you're going to do it, fucking do it. Like, just go for it. Like, give it your all. You do not get the time back. We're only doing this once. Like, let's go. And so I think those are, 5 things. Easy day.
I love it. That's amazing. The rules is so critical. Like, I hate rules so much. And I've been spending the last 2 years unwinding the rules that were pounded into me for 26. Like, or 25, like that's how people are, right? Like the ones who break the rules, those are the ones who do things. They innovate, they grow companies.
100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's shift to like section 3 of the show, which is more like kind of personal questions about your learnings. So the first one, I just want to, advice to your younger self. And I think there's been different stages of your life that you could reflect on, right? Like starting at Deloitte, starting at Columbia, starting Laws of Motion. And you can pick any of those, but when you look back at the beginning, what are some things that you wish you would have told or someone would have told you or that you could go back and tell your younger self?
Yeah, I think if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would say that you are your biggest obstacle. Like you can do anything you want in this world, like anything is possible if you decide to do it. And the only thing that's going to stop you from doing it is you. And so, right, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, you really can make anything happen. I believe that in anybody. And so I think internalizing that and really, really leaning into that earlier, like, I would love to have a conversation with my overscheduled, like, super ambitious 18-year-old self and say, like, okay, keep going. Like, don't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, like, have you always been like this? Because you're full of just passion, energy. And I feel like you can't teach that. Like, you must have had this your whole life.
Yeah. This is pretty much, it's a lot. I wish if one of my parents was on with us, they'd be like, oh yeah, totally. But I'm here for it. I think like that's infectious. It's important. And it's good for you to remind yourself always too.
It is totally. All right. So what's one, this is more tactical. What's one like needle mover habit? So it could be a tactic or tip or strategy that someone told you early on in your life or that you discovered that you've been implementing consistently that's moved the needle the most for you.
Yeah, it's 100%. For me, the biggest needle mover habit has been removing constraints for people, like literally mental blocks. So when you're working through a brainstorm or you're advising, an earlier stage founder, right? Or working with a friend through a problem, how do you say, like, pretend like there is no budget? Like, let's remove, like, there are no obstacles. Like, let's not worry about timeline. Let's not worry about pricing. Like, what would we do? Right. And the same thing goes for any kind of problem solving opportunity. I think when you can remove barriers for people and help them break down those walls, the way that we think and connect dots and connect ideas, like, is just exponential. And that's something that I've applied to my life. And it's really just about listening and questioning and pushing things a little bit further. But then what happens is magic happens.
Yeah. And is it as simple as like you just get your team in a room and say, hey guys, let's throw these out? Or like, have you had to push some people to like really get out of their own way? Like what are some systems or examples that you give to them to help them do that?
Yeah. Like, so something as simple as like trying to get something done during COVID, right? Like, how are we going to figure all this out? Like, we needed 40 planes to be able to move all the supply chain that we did. And, we're talking with different airline executives and trying to figure this out. And all the big bodied birds are over in Asia. And right, it was a total disaster. And so I literally opened up the door. I was like, okay, so like, hey team, like, let's work through this together. Like, how else can we do this? Like, who else has that? Oh, military has access to planes. Okay, who do we know that did special operations? Like, how do we get connected to a team that might have resources and logistics support that could do, right? And so next thing you know, we're connected with former special operations team that has a dotted line to some agency stuff, and they're chartering planes and running operations and logistics. And now they're great partners of ours and incredible friends. But it was literally just like, okay, so we're not going to go through FedEx and UPS. We're not going to find, Delta or American or United. Like, what else can we do? And so when we just took a step back and thought holistically about it, it worked out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a question I just threw in here. We're trying it for the first time, so we can cut it if you don't like it. But so it's kind of like this idea of your personal operating system, and I'm fascinated by like products and the way people use different softwares or different physical products that they just like love and they use every day, and it helps them be more efficient and productive and whatever. And it could be wellness or productivity or whatever. What comes to mind for you as like your favorite tools or products that allow you to function at your best?
Yeah. It has to be digital.
Could be digital or physical, whatever you love most. Like when you think about I couldn't live without these 5 things, like it's this.
Yeah, I have a standing meeting with myself at 6:30 in the morning every single day. It's literally like I can like read what it says. It's a good one, but I've had it for several years. It says, reflect on today's goals, make this your most powerful day on earth. And I literally sit for 30 minutes with myself and like outline like what are my intentions for the day? Like, what energy am I bringing to everything that's going on? And like, it's not about like my calendar or about checking how much sleep I got or about like, going through all of our like social channels. I'm literally just like taking a moment. Like, some people meditate, some people like all sorts, kind of meditation of sorts, but it's like intention setting and like knowing where I'm going to channel my energy, and the ability to be like conscious about that and like remove that subconscious, I think, is a super powerful and super simple. Like, everyone can schedule 30 minutes with themselves to sit still and like go through like why they're here and what they're going to do.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's not like a sexy like tech thing. I want it to be levels. Hey, levels, take me off the wait list.
Do you have? Oh, you don't have a levels?
No.
Okay, I'm pretty close with them. I can maybe see if they'll do it.
Yeah, let's make that out, because that should be the answer, right? Is like, I biohack the shit out of everything, and thanks levels for like doing it. Yeah.
Levels blew my mind. That I talk about them on every episode I possibly can. So like that was the next question I was gonna ask. Like I'm fascinated. This like idea of the health stack, I'm
Yeah.
all in on it. Like that's the most important thing in my life. And
100%.
I use, have you heard of 8 Sleep? It's
No.
like this. So they make beds that are thermoregulated. So as you sleep,
Yes.
yeah, you've heard of it?
Oh, yeah. Keep going now.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
But it's amazing. Like when you go to sleep, your body is a little warmer, and then as you sleep, it cools down.
Okay.
The bed adjusts automatically so that it optimizes your body temperature, and you don't wake up as much.
Yeah.
But the quality sleep you get is unbelievable. So like that, I wear the Aura ring while I sleep to measure that levels. Like I want sensors everywhere because I feel like
Yes.
yeah, that's how you optimize. So I guess the question was for you, like, how do you think about wellness in your life?
Mhm.
It sounds like you care about it a lot. And like, what are the things you do across like the fitness, nutrition, sleep, content? How do you control that for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you can't pour from an empty glass. Like that is, it's cliche because it's true, right? And so I show up for myself every day. Like I always prioritize wellness, whether it's like doing wall sits on a call or like doing leg lifts. I'm literally standing for this. Like I encourage the team to like get it in where you can when you can, right? It's like sometimes it's hard to have like that standing. I think COVID's really instilled this in us too. Like it's tough to have that standing class every morning or every evening. Like things get crazy with life and work, but when you show up for yourself and you prioritize it, it's amazing like how that like trickles into the rest of your life. And I think that prioritizing wellness, just like we prioritize work or just like you prioritize family, is like if something matters, right, you have to measure it. And the ability to like hold yourself accountable to doing that and showing up for yourself it's so critical. It's everything.
Yeah. I'm pumped for when there's like either you ingestible or implantable. It's like levels souped up though, like where everything you eat, it automatically can sense it. And
Yeah.
like almost I wish there was a way it could auto deploy vitamins into your system
Oh,
depending on where your levels
where
were.
you
That would be
need.
sick. Yeah,
And
exactly.
also like bringing the Razor scooter back. Like my West Village commute is literally me on a skateboard or scooter, and then like changing into my heels when I get to the office because like I'm here for a 4-inch heel and hair tees. Like it's just ingrained. But like I love that. Like how do you like not do the normal commute and like take some fresh air in and like get some vitamin D and like really go for it and push yourself. And so, anyways, Razor scooter is my new thing. I'm here for it. And I think everyone should have one.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we're burning through my questions pretty quick, but let's shift to the brainstorm, which this has become my favorite section of the show. And basically how it works is, I'm just curious in what other things other than laws of motion and that space interest you. And if laws of motion was gone tomorrow and you had to start a new business from scratch, what idea would be most compelling? And like, let's just riff back and forth on how you think you would do it.
100%. I love this question. So if laws of motion disappeared and I had to create a different business, I think the like space NASA element of me wants to like talk about like aging as a disease and like how do we get like super molecular and like quantumy about understanding like DNA, breakdown in DNA, well, like the whole holistic, like how do we measure that? How do we prevent it? How do we like take care of ourselves and like not play whack-a-mole with health? Also, more like granular, I am so here for a reinvented umbrella. Like I think a direct to consumer, like NASA engineered, like material innovation, sweet price point. You can monogram it, you can personalize it, you gift it. Like umbrellas don't have homes. How many umbrellas do we buy a year because they just disappear, right? Like I think that there is an opportunity and we need to disrupt the umbrella market.
All right, let's press on that. How would you design, like what in your head, how are you visualizing a new umbrella? Like if you were to had to redesign it?
A rocket ship. Like I want to like look at like the aeronautical, how do we design something so that it literally has like the most ergonomical, like the right, like everything, like performance is like the design, like intuitive and like human-centered design is everything. And then we look at materials and like, how do we make better materials that make sense, materials that don't drip water all over you. Maybe the water doesn't even touch it. Maybe the water like floats above it because it has some like electromagnetic
polarity or something.
Yeah, right. Like, why haven't we solved this? It's 2021.
That's a great point because umbrellas are probably the shittiest product that exists. Like, has
Literally
anyone held one and not gotten wet? No, like you
ever.
just get soaked.
I just think we need to fix the umbrella. I think there's a better way to do it, and I think it could be like the stickiest, hottest thing. And let's make the umbrella sexy and make it work.
what I was wondering is why is there not, so this is probably like 1.1 off where it is. You're talking like 3 or 4, V3 or 4, which we need to go there. But
Yeah,
why is it not like maybe it goes to your waist, not like to your head. It goes all the way to your waist and it's flared out. So like the water comes and goes off.
goes
And
off.
like there's just a clear part where you can see.
Yeah,
Like, well, I don't understand why it doesn't cover you farther down. Like
right.
right now, it just stops right here so you can see, but like the water just hits you after that.
100%. And then you've got like all the different sizes, and you're trying like, what's the right protocol when you're on the sidewalk and you're like, do I go left or right? Like, how do we
Yeah.
the whole thing? And like,
The
or
whole
up
thing's
or down.
broken.
Yeah, I just want to like press a button and, and then if nothing, it's all like no water, no handle. Like, there's got to be a better way to do it.
Would you use almost like a personal bubble, but not lame? Like you press something and your entire body is like covered by something?
Oh yeah, and also like the idea to like that really translates well for COVID too, right? Like personal, like don't worry, like right, like what's the future of the mask? Like maybe it's this product that also solves for umbrellas.
Yeah. What's your what before Laws of Motion, what were some of your favorite brands like for clothes or anything you bought a lot? And like is there any common thread among those that just like I find it fascinating what people like just genuinely gravitate towards?
Yeah, I would always change everything. So I would like even back to like my debutante dress, like I like found two different dresses and combined them and I didn't like the heels. So I wore Vans sneakers with them, which was like a whole to do, but just like felt right and like became like a whole moment. Like I've always like adjusted like buttons or like cut the sleeves off or like I would tailor my t-shirts when I was in high school so that they fit better because I didn't like why is a small women's t-shirt so like let's like fix it. And so I've always been like adjusting everything. And I think that's probably the common thread is like that's a great idea, like the yes and of life. Like, how do you yes and every article that you like introduce to your life so that it really adds value and like brings you joy.
Yeah, what I love about, I mean, a lot of things you said are awesome, but the one where like there's like Carly fit or Kyle fit, like you could, if there was a way to give that, you basically have an ID that maps to all of your measurements. And then, today, like you have to go to Laws of Motion to get that. But tomorrow, I would love to not be restricted by which brand I go to, but I could just give them my like Kyle fit measurements and then
Yes.
their clothes could map me perfectly. Like that, why I don't understand why clothes aren't like that today.
Novel idea, right? Like
Yeah.
how amazing would it be if like things that we like spent resources on actually like brought
Yeah, worked.
like like added value back to your life in a way that like I'm so with you.
Yeah.
Great idea. Maybe someone should do that.
Yeah, there you go. You guys are definitely onto it. Do you have any other ideas before we wrap up? Any other brainstorms?
I mean, the big one I think like that everyone should be talking about is like how do we treat aging as a disease? I don't think that it's about like when I say aging, I don't mean like how do we like get Botox into more people's hands. I
And
mean
like longevity.
molecular and like really understand like wellness as a source of like existence and better. I think it starts with better understanding yourself, right? And like really tapping into the tools and resources available to us to like better understand like the why, not just the what. And like I'm so opposed to like the whack-a-mole like health models. It's like how do we like you said, like how do we like take that capsule in the morning that like literally like sends off the right vitamins at the right time based to keep you like what does that look like and like how do we like leapfrog into that having all the science and access that we do today like how are we not looking at like empowering individuals to holistically own their wellness?
Yeah, it's great. I think there's 3 things that have to be solved. The first is the quantification, like the data. And so that's like what levels in 8 sleep are just scratching the surface, but it needs to be more real time and everywhere for like every biomarker. That's 1. 2 is like, okay, how do you equip an everyday person to read that data and to understand like what that means? And then 3, how do you build the products to automatically fix where the data has gaps, right? So like deploy the vitamins. It's going to be a 20 to 30 year journey probably.
Yeah.
But like, I hope that they solve that when we're young enough to where like that sweet spot age where we extend is like not 80, it's like 40 or 50. So we can actually enjoy like more, good years.
Longevity and like extend that. Yeah, totally. I think it's so important. And I think it's like one of those big audacious questions that can be intimidating to tackle. But like when you take little steps forward, like Levels and 8 Sleep are doing, right? And we like lean into data and like use that to empower decisions and then find those right solutions. You're right. That's a critical third component. Like how do you actually react to that? Like I think that we will, human existence it's everything. And so how we further that is so important.
Yeah. All right. I'll leave you with this thought. You know what's funny is I don't understand why the education system or whatever hasn't been engineered where like people like you and I like to think me who are just like ready to sink their teeth into big problems that need to be solved. Like you're not really incentivized by the system to do that. It's kind of like a risk and the reward is tough to capture.
Yeah.
Like we live in a money driven society where you're more incentivized to like be a consultant, make a good amount of money and just like chill. But really the world should be engineered the opposite. Like if you have that go-getter mentality, you should be rewarded for taking those risks even if you fail. It's kind of weird that's not how the world works.
It's so true. It's such a great like way to like summarize that and like it's something to think through. I think that's why we end up seeing like communities of founders like and CEOs like come together the way we do and like be so supportive and like share deal flow and like make introductions across other industries or spark ideas together. I think you start to see that like sending the elevator back down to summarize it, right? Like but like staying on it to welcome the person and bring them back up with you, And I think the more we can institutionalize that and give it some like real structure, like the better off the world will be.
Yeah, totally. All right, before I let you go, I'm gonna acknowledge you for a second. You're a straight up boss. I feel like you're killing it, and I mean your answers were unreal. But I think your like vibrance and just infectious energy is like never lose that because that is super important. And if people take nothing else away from this conversation, which I know they'll take a lot, I hope they just take that and bring more positivity and energy into their own day. So I just want to say thanks again so much for coming on. I'm going to continue to be a huge fan, and I really appreciate it.
Would it be cliche to say cool, cool?
Cool. Let it fly.
Love it. Back at you.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right, Carly Bigi, founder of Laws of Motion. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Kyle.